When the war started, I was still at school. I was at Portora Royal School. Prior to that, I'd been to Enniskillen Model School. But we lived in the town of Enniskillen and were born between the bridges. And I was in my final year at Portora, when I was coming up to sixth form. The war broke out, and of course we all had been in the officers training corps, and it was before they formed the air training corps. That came a bit later. So we were already very keen young soldiers, if you like, and when war broke out, our main thoughts were going into the services, mainly the army. In those days, not very many people went into the Navy, from Portora at any rate, generally the Army, a few into the RAF.
And why did you think of the RAF?
Well, it was a strange thing happened. I was going to join the Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers, which my family had been in, and two of us went on. This was a bit later on, after Dunkirk, at the time of the Dunkirk fiasco, and we went to Omagh to join the Enniskillens. But we were kindly refused because we weren't quite old enough. You needed to be 18 in those days, and we were only 17. So my good friend, he waited till he was 18, joined the army, and he was commissioned into the Royal Irish Fusiliers and killed at Casino. But I got into the Royal Air Force under a different kind of scheme. So we went different ways. He was killed at Casino, and I managed to. I've been lucky.
Yeah. How did your parents feel about you joining up?
Well, like all parents, I think they were apprehensive, but they were not against it in any way, of course. Enniskillen was a military town, and most people, it was expected that people would, certainly in those days. And at school, it was more or less expected that you would.
Yeah. Would that have been about 1940 you joined?
No, yes, that's right. It was, the war broke out in September '39, and I did my senior certificate in the following spring. And that was the time when the Germans were coming right down through Europe, and the Dunkirk episode happened, you see.
Mm-hmm.
So, and after that, at that time also they formed the Home Guard. And as we were all very keen and trained young soldiers, we were in the Home Guard and spending nights out, in case of parachute events, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, so you were well in it even before you joined up.
Yeah. Mm.
And so what happened then once you joined up?
When I did join the RAF, I first went to Belfast, where we did a very initial sort of medical, just to see that we were standing up, all that. And after a short time, while they processed that information, I had to go to Royal Air Force Padgate in Lancashire, where I was sworn in, like many other people. We went across in a group and was sworn in, and then had a different kind of medical, because I had applied to become air crew. You see, many of the other people were going to be mechanics or one thing or another like that. But for a short time at Padgate, which mainly concerned was introduction to the RAF, and I say being sworn in, and after that went back home and waited to be called up into the Royal Air Force as such.
So how long did that take? Was that a wee delay then?
Oh, it was forgotten quite now, but it was quite a time.
Oh, okay.
And eventually then we were called up. And when I set off from Enniskillen on the train, at Bundoran Junction, I was joined by this other man from Irvinstown who I'd known briefly in Enniskillen. He was a Methody boy actually, not Portora. And of course we came together and you know, and well, he's dead now like all the rest of my crew, but anyway, we went off together and down to London.